Discover the sinister secrets that haunt sleepless nights. Watch before it's exposed. Jenna's heart raced as she cruised the dark streets of Willow Creek, her pulse syncopating with the rhythmic beep of the diner's neon sign glimmering behind her. Night had fallen hard, thick and stifling, wrapping the quiet suburb in a shroud of foreboding. She could swear the shadows stretched longer, watched closer, as she parked her car. Just last week, it had all felt so ordinary. Now, every rustling leaf sounded like a whisper, a warning. Inside the diner, the worn booths and flickering lights felt like a stage set for the unsteady performances of the night. With each cup of coffee poured, Jenna listened to the patrons' hushed conversations, a swirl of unease filling the air like cigarette smoke. "Did you hear about the latest disappearance?" one man whispered, his eyes darting around as if afraid someone might overhear. She gripped the pot tighter, her knuckles white, the fumes of brewed coffee mingling with the strain in the air. Then there were the items showing up on their porch, a plastic bat, then a single black feather. Each one an echo of dread, a cruel reminder that something was off-kilter in her once safe world. Flashes of movement haunted her, strange shadows in the garden just beyond her view, sounds that sent chills down her spine. Was it the wind mocking her fears? Or something far worse lurking just out of sight? Unbeknownst to her, each night brought a deeper descent into Willow Creek's sinister underbelly. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as Jenna wiped a bead of sweat from her brow, the door swung open. In walked Tommy, the boy who sent a shiver down her spine. He was eerily charming and far too familiar with their lives. It was the stories he told David that unsettled her the most, tales that twisted snippets of their daily routine into chilling narratives. "Did you hear what happened to Mrs. Allen, Jenna?" he said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Her cat found a strange feather, too. The walls seemed to close in, every table now a conspirator in the quiet dread mounting inside her. Goosebumps rushed across her skin. What game was he playing? A montage of white picket fences and friendly waves felt like a face mask slipping away to reveal fangs bared in anticipation. Halloween loomed like a dark cloud, and on October 31st, the facade shattered. David vanished. One moment he was there, the next a phantom. In the place he'd been, she found that same black feather pinned to their door, a grotesque calling card. Panic igniting in her chest, Jenna darted out into the night, breath hitching as the shadows danced menacingly. "David!" she shouted, her voice swallowed by the darkness. The street seemed to pulse, shadows growing taller, morphing into nightmarish shapes. Every creak, every whisper sent her further into despair. Had she been blind to the danger that lurked beneath their painted smiles? The chill in the air thickened as she searched, the line between safety and fear blurred grotesquely. No one would come for her in this silence, no friendly neighbor would answer. As she felt a presence lurking just beyond her sight, a thrill of fear seized her. The truth would claw its way to the surface. But what horror awaited her as she uncovered the sinister secrets of Willow Creek? And would it be too late for David? The darkness held its breath, leaving Jenna trembling at the edge of a nightmare she never prepared for. Jenna's breath fogged the air as she darted past the silent houses, desperation blurring her vision. Each step pounded with urgency, her heart a frantic drum echoing in the stillness. "David," she cried again, the name hanging in the heavy night like a weight. But the silence answered back, thick and mocking. She pulled her phone from her pocket, fingers trembling. No signal. Just shadows creeping in on all sides. Why was no one outside? The street lamps cast weak patches of light, stark against the encroaching darkness, but they felt more like prison bars than guardians in this moment. What had been a cozy neighborhood was now a labyrinth of nightmares. The deeper she moved into the night, the more the shadows writhing around her seemed to morph into something sentient. Were they watching? Waiting? Her thoughts spiraled. What if it was Tommy? Did he know her fears? Had he orchestrated this? Suddenly, something rustled, a sharp scratch against the asphalt. She whirled around, breath hitching. Her gaze landed on a figure retreating into the thicket at the edge of her vision. "Hey!" she yelled, pushing back the fear clawing at her throat. "Show yourself." The figure hesitated for a moment, then vanished into the dark. Jenna's resolve wavered but spurred her forward, desperation eclipsing all sense. As she neared the park, memories of laughter and warmth twisted into grotesque shadows of what once was. "David!" she called, but the leaves seemed to swallow her voice whole. She stumbled upon the swings, their chains creaking eerily, swaying as if pushed by ghostly hands. The moonlight caught something. Another black feather lay on the ground. Jenna's stomach twisted. The very sight of it felt like a bad omen, like marking death. "What the hell?" she murmured, scanning her surroundings. Suddenly, she heard it. A faint sound like the crunch of leaves underfoot, but hurried and frantic. It was close. Jenna's heart raced as she pressed her back against the cold metal of the swing set, straining to listen. The sound grew louder. It was a scuttling chaos in the underbrush. Was it animals? Or something worse? Out of the corner of her eye, she caught a flicker, a body emerging from behind a tree. Her breath seized. It was Tommy, face pale in the moonlight, eyes wide with something close to excitement, or madness. "Looking for someone?" he called, voice dripping with sickening sweetness. Jenna's heart thundered in her chest, an instinctual flight response battling with a morbid curiosity. "What do you know about David?" she demanded, forcing her voice steady. Tommy stepped closer, the shadows wrapping around him like a dark cloak. "Oh, Jenna. You shouldn't be here. The truth is, it's already too late for him." Her blood turned cold. Panic flared, burning at the edges of her vision. "What do you mean? Where is he?" He tilted his head, that infuriating grin stretching wider. "He's a part of Willow Creek now. Isn't it beautiful how everything connects?" The feathers, the disappearances, the darkness calling. Jenna felt her grip on reality slip. Every instinct screamed to run, but her feet felt rooted to the earth. "You're insane." She spat, but the words felt weak. This boy, this twisted reflection of everything she once believed, was feeding her fears with every breath. Suddenly, the bushes rustled again. Jenna's heart raced. Was it David? But no, something was emerging, a shadow larger than Tommy, eyes gleaming like shards of glass, and it approached. "Maybe you should join him," Tommy suggested, his voice a cruel whisper as he stepped back into the darkness, a Cheshire cat fading into nothingness. Fear gripped her fully now. She turned, needing to escape whatever darkness loomed closer, but the otherworldly whisper behind her echoed. "Will you join him?" Racing back towards the street, Jenna didn't look back. But the impending sensation of being hunted gnawed at her. The truth seemed to tremble at her fingertips, ready to leap out and consume her. In the depths of Willow Creek, something unseen pulsed with life, and it was hungry. Would the shadows reclaim her? Next. And what awaited her in the dreadful truth that twisted like a vine around her heart? As she fled, the night laughed, promising more horrors to unfold. Jenna ran, but the shadows felt alive, wrapping around her ankles and tugging at her like desperate claws. Every stride echoed in her ears, each heartbeat amplified by fear. The street was an empty throat, swallowing her screams, leaving only a hollow dread behind. "David!" she shouted again, although doubt crawled into her mind. What if he was already lost? What if Tommy's words were true? She was almost at the intersection when the streetlights flickered and dimmed. It was like the world was holding its breath, shrouding her in a deeper gloom. "Come on," she urged, glancing up at the failing lights, as if willing them to stay lit. A deep gust of wind swept through, stirring the shadows again. They seemed to ripple, to pulse, as if something with a heartbeat lurked just beyond her eyesight. The silhouettes grew bolder, jutting from behind trees and fences, testing her resolve, and then she heard a deep, resonating growl that rumbled in the pit of her stomach. Panic surged, drowning any remnants of calm she had left. "Stop it. Just stop." She yelled into the nothingness, her voice cracking. The growl morphed into a low, mocking whisper, barely audible, but it felt like icy fingers trailing over her skin. "Will you join him?" She bolted toward the only refuge she could cling to, the flickering lights of a nearby diner. Its neon sign hummed weakly, casting a sickly glow on the pavement, and Jenna could see the outline of the door slightly ajar. Clenching her fists, she lunged inside. The diner was still, echoing with a sickly silence. Greasy tables, mismatched chairs, everything felt off-kilter in the unsettling stillness. Jenna glanced behind her, half expecting the shadows to follow her in, but only the muted hum of the refrigerator greeted her. "David!" She called again, this time desperation tailing her voice. She peered into the kitchen, the faint metallic scent of something old filling her nostrils. The flickering fluorescent light struggled to stay alive, and she felt a tremor of unease creep down her spine. "Why is it always so dark?" she muttered, forcing herself deeper into the diner. She passed by the front counter, where a dusty radio sat, its volume still cranked up, playing an old tune. The melody felt like a lonesome ghost, intertwined with the memories of the past. She seized it for comfort, even as dread curled at her stomach. Jenna's eyes caught movement in the corner. It was a reflection, but distorted, like something was hiding behind the glass. She shifted closer, heart pounding in her throat, dread creeping along her spine. And that S when she saw it, a message scrawled hastily across the mirror, "He's already one of us." As if the message awakened something dark in the diner, cold laughter echoed from nowhere, sending shivers down her spine. Her gut twisted, leaving her breathless. It was the same laugh she heard in the shadows outside, but now, it felt like it was surrounding her, suffocating her. Desperation morphed into fury. She couldn't let Tommy's madness consume her, she had to fight back. "Where is David? Show me!" she shouted, her voice igniting a flicker of bravery. With every word, the shadows flickered, a struggle between light and dark. And then, Jenna felt that something was moving in front of her, an unmistakable shift in the air, a mass gathering from the corners. She stepped back, panic clawing up her throat. No. Emerging from the darkness, figures began to take shape, hollow eyes staring at her, their visages a grotesque mockery of the people she once knew. Family, friends, even David, all twisted into horrid expressions that pronounced her fears as truth. "No!" she cried, turning to run. Yet the diner door slammed shut with a resounding finality, trapping her inside this realm of despair. The figures closed in, whispering words that caressed her ears like venomous silk. "You cannot escape, you belong here now." Terror deepened, Jenna's mind raced. She had to survive. As they reached out, clawing hands stretched toward her skin, she caught sight of the kitchen's back exit. It was a sliver of hope, yet. The figures pressed closer, desperation turning to howls of torment. She lunged for the door. Would there be a way out? Would freedom exist beyond the threshold? Or was the night of horrors just beginning? Jenna's hand grasped the cold knob, heart pounding as the shadows closed in behind her. Could she face what lay ahead? Would she find David, or was it all an illusion? The air crackled with an unsettling promise. With a burst of strength fueled by fear, she yanked the door open, plunging into the night once again. What awaited her on the other side? Only the chill of the unknown lingered as she stepped into the glossy darkness beyond. Jenna stumbled into the night, the door slamming shut with a deafening thud behind her. The world outside wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket, dark and oppressive. The diner was a mere silhouette now, the sickly neon glow fading into the depths of her horror. She could hear the echoes of ghostly laughter drifting through the cracks of her sanity. "He's already one of us," it taunted, a snake coiling tighter around her heart. Her feet moved on instinct alone, every nerve screamed for her to flee. The streets were empty, save for the dark shapes lurking at the edges of her vision, weaving in and out of the streetlights. Jenna strained to listen above the relentless thud of her own heartbeat. Yet all she could hear were whispers, the sound of breath too faint to grasp but familiar all the same. "David!" She called again, so hopelessly, desperately that the name felt foreign even to her. What if he really was lost? What if he had joined them in the shadows? Suddenly, a low growl rose from the darkness, reverberating against the buildings, shaking her to the core. It cackled like a voice consumed by madness, a cruel mockery that vibrated in her bones. Chills swept through her, and Jenna instinctively took a step back, her back pressed against the cold, unforgiving brick of the diner. Then, there he was, a figure emerging from the gloom, slowly stepping into the flickering light. David? She squinted, straining to see if it was really him, but the shadows clung to his form like a dark shroud, twisting his features. His eyes shone unnaturally bright, no longer the familiar warmth she once knew. "Jenna," he whispered, his voice hoarse and thin, threading through the night like a dark promise. "David, we need to go." Her voice pleaded, but with every word, a chill clawed deeper into her soul. It was as if a part of her knew that this was not the brother she had fought to find. "Please, we have to get out of here." "No," he replied slowly, the smile on his lips crooked, unsettling. "You can stay. You were so close to joining us." Something shifted in the air, an electric tension that made Jenna's skin crawl. The shadows tightened around her, and a surge of terror gripped her heart like a vice. "I'll never join you!" she screamed, raw and defiant. She turned, ready to make a run for it once more, but the shadows danced before her. It was like running through molasses. The world kept stretching, bending. She stumbled toward the sound of a distant siren, the only beacon cutting through the blanket of night. She pushed through the darkness, trying to escape David's distorted figure, but the shadows surged forward, pulling her back, tugging at her limbs, dragging her into their depths. "Jenna!" David's voice called again, now layered with something sinister, something that sent a jolt of pure dread rippling through her. The once comforting name had morphed into an unholy chant, echoing off the walls. Figures emerged from the darkness, familiar faces twisted into horrid masks, their eyes hollow and pleading, reaching out for her. "No, no, no!" she cried, backing away, her breath coming in frantic gasps. But they flanked her, surrounding her until the air became thick with despair. She spotted an alleyway to her right, narrow and cloaked in dread, but it was a chance. "Run!" a voice inside her screamed, drowning out the whispers that begged her to stay. With a burst of adrenaline, she dashed into the alley, something cold brushing against her back as she did. She felt pressure close in, an amorphous mass intent on engulfing her. Jenna bolted forward, sprinting into the darkness, praying it would lead her to safety. But each step felt heavier, the shadows becoming more aggressive, pleading voices echoing in her mind. She could feel their despair. She could feel them trying to pull her back. The alley grew narrower, twisting into a labyrinth of cold brick and damp shadows. The sirens faded, and her heart hammered in her ears. Was she trapped? Desperation clawed at her insides. Would she ever escape the darkness following her? With a sudden, terrifying realization. A figure loomed at the end of the alley, blocking her path. Would it be another shadow, another twisted face? Or would it hold the truth she desperately sought, a way out, or the end of all hope? Jenna's breath hitched. The moment hung heavy in the air. Was this her salvation or the final torment? As she took a shaky step closer, every instinct screamed to flee. What awaited her in the shadows ahead, as familiar and yet terrifying as the abyss behind? Would she face the truth lurking there, or was it too late? As Jenna approached the figure at the end of the alley, her heart was a drumbeat in her ears, drowning out every other sound. Shadows whimpered around her, a chorus of muted voices urging her onward, forcing her to confront what lay ahead. The figure stood still, an ominous silhouette against the faint glow of a streetlight. She squinted harder, her pulse quickening. "Who are you?" she called, the question cracking like glass. Instead of answering, the figure moved slowly, purposefully. With each step, the darkness seemed to ripple, as if being drawn to an unseen magnet. Jenna felt her breath catch. Panic rose again in her throat, acrid and bitter like old bile. What awaited her at the end of the alley? Jenna, a voice emerged, drenched in a haunting familiarity. It was David, but it wasn't he the David she had known. This was a different kind of him, a semblance wrapped in malice. Come closer. No. She shot back, trembling. You're not my brother. You can't be. He smiled, a grotesque twist of lips, an empty gesture that didn't reach his eyes. You should have joined us when you had the chance. Now you'll see what it really means to belong. Jenna turned to run back, but the shadows surged, blocking her retreat. A cold dread swept through her limbs. Ducking low, she squeezed against the damp brick wall, feeling its gritty texture beneath her fingers. Let me go. She screamed, desperation fueling her voice. The alley echoed with her cries, swallowed by the darkness. The streetlight flickered wildly, casting an erratic glow that danced like a heartbeat. She gasped for air, trying to quell the rising panic. Then it came, the cacophony of laughter unleashed, ringing in her ears like a death knell. Familiar faces twisted in the shadows, all of them grinning, but not in delight. It was a mocking joy that bore a chilling promise. Jenna felt their eyes on her, hungry and expectant. Join us, they pleaded, their voices a sinister symphony blending into one another, weaving a web of despair. The shadows stretched and shaped themselves into nightmarish forms, reaching out, as if trying to wrap around her. No! Jenna shouted, pushing herself off the wall, driven by instinct. She bolted in the opposite direction, deeper into the alley, where the darkness thickened. It clung to her like a suffocating fog, distorting her view, making it hard to tell where she was running. The laughter vaunted behind her, growing fainter but more insistent, like a ghostly echo pursuing its prey. Her feet slapped against the pavement, fear injecting fire into her veins. She couldn't allow herself to think of anything else but escape. Distantly, she wondered if there was truly a way out of this labyrinth, or if she was simply running deeper into her own grave. Were the shadows closing in, or had she just lost all sense of direction? Suddenly, a glimmer caught her eye, a faint light seeping from a doorway several feet ahead. Hope pricked at her heart, tugging her forward. She sprinted towards it, praying it wasn't another trick, another shadowy masquerade. As she neared the entrance, a scream erupted from the depths of her mind. It felt like a warning, a final plea that something terrible awaited within. Her hand reached for the door, trembling. Was it salvation or doom? With the weight of terror clutching at her throat, she paused, heart pounding, breath coming in desperate gasps. Was she ready to face whatever lay beyond? But as she made contact with the door, it swung open with an eerie creak. Inside lay further dark uncertainty, whispering promises that twisted and turned like a coiled serpent. Driven by equal parts fear and hope, Jenna stepped forward into the unknown. What awaited her beyond that threshold? Redemption or final downfall? The door slammed shut behind her, echoing ominously into the night. And in the silence that followed, the laughter returned, richer, closer, and darker than ever. Jenna stumbled into the dim space, her eyes struggling to adjust. The stale air hung heavy, thick with a dampness that clung to her skin like a warning. A mere sliver of moonlight penetrated through a grimy window, illuminating dust motes dancing in chaotic abandon. She heard the faintest sound, a dragging noise, low and scraping against the floor. It sent chills racing down her spine. Panic clawed at her insides as she spun around, the door creaking ominously behind her, a grotesque reminder of her decision to enter. "Hello," she croaked, her voice cracking, barely a whisper against the oppressive silence. Her heart raced, pounding an erratic rhythm that seemed to echo off the cold, unyielding walls. From the shadows, a figure began to emerge, indistinct but undeniably menacing. Its silhouette swayed languidly, like it was teasing her with uncertainty, refusing to reveal itself fully. Jenna held her breath, every instinct screaming to run. "Don't be afraid yet," a voice crooned, smooth as silk but laced with a predatory hunger that made her skin crawl. It wasn't David, but the twisted remnants of what he had become, lurking here, deep in this suffocating gloom. "Why are you doing this?" Jenna's challenge came out stronger than she felt. Every pulse in her body screamed for her to retreat, to tear open the door and flee into the night. But she needed answers. Doing what? The figure stepped closer, and the moonlight revealed just enough. The face was familiar yet grotesquely distorted, a friend lost to shadows, a victim turned predator. "I'm merely showing you where you belong." The laughter from the alley echoed here, twisting and curling like smoke from a flame, rising into her thoughts and igniting dormant dread. They all wanted this, Jenna. They wanted to be free from the mundane. To embrace what they truly are. Free. She gasped, incredulous. "You call this freedom?" Her hands shook, and she grappled with whatever courage remained. The figure's grin widened, revealing too many teeth, like a jagged maw prepared to consume her whole. "You will see." You felt the pull. The allure. It stepped even closer. The dark fabric fluttered around it like shadowy tendrils wanting to wrap around her. "You cannot resist what you've always desired." A low growl broke from her throat as Jenna stumbled back. She scanned the room, searching for something, anything to defend herself, but the walls just loomed closer, constricting her choices. The shadows played tricks, forming dark corners that whispered her name. "Join us," the figure mocked, echoing the pleas of her friends, each name a nail in her resolve. "We have so much to offer a world where pain and anguish are mere memories." "Enough!" Jenna shouted, though her voice was shaky, filled with despair. "You're twisted, all of you. I want to be part of this." Silence fell, thick as fog, suffocating. Then the cacophony exploded again, drowning her in laughter, resonating with desperation and delight. The noise filled her ears, tugging at the fragile threads of her sanity. "Resist all you want, Jenna. We'll find you," the figure hissed, its form fading back into the darkness. "You're one of us now. You cannot escape." Adrenaline surged, and she ran blind through the cramped room, adrenaline coursing through her veins like fire. The shadows reached for her, claws of darkness clawing at her heels. Finally, she found a door, a chance, another escape. She yanked it open and barreled through, heart racing, pulse pounding, breathless with fear. On the other side, the laughter followed, transforming into something more sinister, pulling away the last vestiges of hope. Where had she run? What lay outside? All she knew was she was far from safe. And the shadows were still watching, closing in on her, hungry for more. Her fate seemed sealed, the race against time only just begun. But what awaited her beyond this door? Something worse, or a way to fight back? The door slammed shut behind Jenna, cutting off the cacophony of laughter. She gasped, heart hammering as she stumbled into a narrow alley, surrounded by towering brick walls. The air was different here, thinner, almost electric, charged with a sense of impending doom. Jenna glanced around, desperately searching for a place to hide. Trash cans lined the edges of the alley, their contents spilling onto the ground. The stench of garbage mixed with something foul, like decay. Fear coiled tightly in her stomach. "No, no," she murmured, trying to choke down the rising panic. The shadows from the previous room were still closing in on her mind. The figure's words looped relentlessly. "You're one of us now." Suddenly, the laughter outside the door faded, replaced by an ominous stillness. Breathing quietly, she pressed her back against the cool brick wall. Maybe they wouldn't find her here. Maybe. A flicker caught her eye. Down at the far end of the alley, an orange flickering light danced. Curious, and driven by a blend of terror and desperation, Jenna slowly edged toward it, the sound of her shuffling feet muffled by a thick, unseen haze. As she neared the source, it transformed into a smoldering barrel, flames licking at the air in sharp, hungry bursts. Shadows flickered along the walls, forming menacing shapes that taunted her. But beside the fire, something lay half-hidden, a figure, cloaked in a tattered blanket, face obscured. "Help me!" The voice was a rasp, barely more than a whisper. Jenna froze, torn between caution and compassion. Are you okay?" The words fell from her lips before she could think twice. The figure shifted, and in the firelight, Jenna saw hollow eyes gazing back at her, sunken deep within a gaunt face. "You should not have come here, girl," it croaked, shaking its head slowly. "Do you not hear them? They are coming." She felt a rush of cold, creeping into her bones. "Who?" she stammered, glancing behind her. "What are you talking about?" "The ones who embraced the shadows. Once they taste your fear, they'll come for you. It's too late." The figure raised a trembling arm, pointing down the alley. "You must run." Before Jenna could process the warning, she heard a distant sound that sent bile rising in her throat, a low, rhythmic thumping that vibrated through the ground beneath her. Her instincts kicked in, pushing her toward escape. "Get up!" she hissed at the figure, snatching its arm to pull it up. But the stranger fell back, dragging her with it into the trash-strewn ground. "No. You don't understand. This place." The drumming grew louder, reverberating through the alley like a heartbeat of impending doom. Jenna felt her breath hitch, terror woven into every heartbeat. She tore her eyes away from the figure, knowing she couldn't stay. Sprinting again, she fled the firelight and plunged deeper into the shadows, the laughter echoing behind her once more, even louder now, taunting, relentless. She turned a corner, desperation pushing her forward, but found nothing but more darkness. It felt suffocating, heavy with secrets and despair. Exhausted, she stumbled to a halt, pressing against another wall, her breathing ragged and sharp, and then a whisper slithered through the darkness. "Jenna, you cannot escape." She spun around, eyes wide, frantically scanning for the source, but only shadows met her frantic gaze. Her heart hammered in her chest. Panic surged anew, and somewhere deep down, she felt that terrible truth sinking in: what if she truly was one of them now? As that thought twisted in her mind, the echo of muffled voices drifted closer, chorus-like, drowning her will to fight. But as they drew near, something glimmered at Jenna's feet, a shard of glass, sharp and threatening. If she had one chance, it would have to be now. Would she fight the shadows or let them take her completely? The decision loomed heavy and imminent, and before her uncertainty could devour her whole, Jenna grasped the shard tightly, ready to face whatever emerged from the darkness. But was it already too late? As Jenna clutched the shard of glass, she felt a deep pull in her gut. Would this become her weapon, or would it be futile against the unseen terror? The voices grew louder, a chaotic mix that seemed to blend into a single, maddening chant. Each syllable crept under her skin, igniting her desperation. She bolted around another corner, adrenaline pumping through her veins. The shadows flickered, contorting around her, whispering promises of despair. "Embrace us, join us." They swirled like smoke, and Jenna stumbled, nearly falling as her feet struggled to keep pace with her racing thoughts. "Fight them," a voice inside her urged, but she felt the shadows pulling at her resolve. Memories flashed, vivid images of laughter and warmth before the darkness dragged her away. Her friends, their smiles, now just distant echoes against this blackened backdrop. "That girl," they said, tauntingly, "she belongs to us now." The shadows took form, elongating into grotesque figures with hollow eyes that seemed to mock her efforts. Jenna resumed her reckless flight, zigzagging through the alleyways, hunting for any sign of hope. She pressed onward, clutching the shard as if it were a lifeline. Each hurried breath was a reminder that fear itself could swallow her whole. The darkness shifted around her, creating an oppressive weight that pressed down against her reality. Suddenly, she spotted a flicker of light, a faint glow. Could it be a window? The thought spurred her on. She raced toward it, heart pounding celestial rhythms against her chest. As she neared that glimmer, it took shape, an old door, half ajar, beckoning her with the promise of escape. But apprehension flooded her mind. What if it was a trap? Go! The inner voice shouted again, and with a swift movement, she pushed the door open, rushing inside. The room was dim and musty, shelves crammed with unimaginable odds and ends, knickknacks that felt like remnants of forgotten lives. The whispering choir still surrounded her, a chorus that called her name, a siren song promising acceptance. No! Jenna shouted as she slammed the door behind her and leaned against it, holding her breath as silence draped over her like a thick fog. She felt the vibrations of the ominous heartbeat through the walls. Peeking out through the slats of the door, she could see flickers of shadow weaving back and forth, darting like frenzied animals searching for prey. But in this room, Jenna sensed something else. A presence, heavier yet calmer than the chaotic whispers outside. It pulled on her, almost welcoming in its familiarity. She heard a different voice, soft yet firm, piercing through the chaotic chant. They will sense you. You have to hide. Jenna's eyes darted to a darkened corner, where an old trunk lay obscured by ancient dust. Please, she muttered, stepping toward it, feeling the weight of fate circle around her. As she approached, she heard the whispers twisting again, growing frantic as the shadows outside realized where she sought refuge. Let us in. You cannot hide. Their cries intermingled with the rhythmic beat, wrapping Jenna in gnawing fear. With trembling fingers, she lifted the lid of the trunk. The chill of dread seeped through the air as she peered inside. But as soon as she looked, her heart stopped. Inside the trunk were ribbons of fabric, stringing together old photographs, faded images of her friends from that very night, smiling carefree. But there was something else, a darker thread woven through, alive with shades of crimson that pulled tight around them. Jenna stumbled back, realizing with horrid clarity that she was part of this tapestry. Then came a loud bang against the door. Shadows surged toward her, a wave of darkness intent on crashing through. Only one can escape, came the chilling utterance, sending ice through her veins. She had to choose. Either be engulfed by the shadows, or embrace the truth that lay in the trunk before her. With a final, resolute breath, she lunged for the photographs, believing they held the key to her salvation, as the echoing thump of the shadows grew ever closer. Would the truth set her free, or would it prove to be her undoing? What dark revelation awaited her within that hauntingly familiar fabric? Jenna's fingers trembled as she clutched the photos, the chilling air heavy with their weight. The shadows pounded against the door, low growls reverberating that sounded more beast than human. She could feel their breath, hot and rancid, seeping through the cracks. The room spun, distorted by panic. What do I have to do? She cried, her voice fraught with desperation. Remember, the soft voice whispered again, wrapping around her like mist. You have to remember which thread connects you to them. Images flickered in her mind, laughing friends, their faces glowing under the summer sun, memories washed in warmth. But behind those smiles were darker moments, secret fears, jealousy, and unspoken betrayals. The flickering light in her heart dimmed as she recalled their moments together, knowing like a knife they had once stood side by side, but there had always been an unseen divide. Only one can escape. The whisper turned into a shriek outside, demanding to be let in. With each bang on the door, Jenna's resolve fluttered like a candle in the wind. The fabric strands of the photos glowed faintly, pulsating with a life of their own, urging her to dig deeper into her past. She bent over the trunk, flipping through the images with frantic urgency. There. A photo that stood apart. Her friends huddled together, everyone but her, faces contorted with fear, faces she never noticed before. The colors drained from the image, replaced with outlines of the shadows that now lurked just outside her sanctuary. The shadows whispered her name, a twisted version of their previous warmth. Fear dripped through their voices, drowning out her thoughts. Let us in, Jenna. You are one of us. She felt the urge to tear the photograph to pieces, to cast her past away, but then the understanding washed over her. No. They aren't my enemies. I am. The revelation hit her like thunder. Each betrayal, every secret, had grown into this monstrous void, pulling her friends into darkness. The shadows were the echoes of her fears, the consequences of choices long hidden. Only by confronting her past could she break free of their grasp. Jenna raised the shard of glass, the glow illuminating the truth buried under layers of fear and guilt. "I want to let you take them," she shouted back at the shadows, her voice steadying. "I will face this." Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide. But she dug deeper into the trunk, grasping the dark thread woven tight. It pulsed as she touched it, sending shudders through her body. The fabric felt like skin. With a steely resolve, she pulled on the crimson thread, yanking it from the trunk and staring into its depths as if it would reveal the truth. The shadows around her let out a collective roar, relentless and chaotic. They surged, no longer just spectators but hungry for destruction. That a sharp pain shot through her, an otherworldly connection igniting between her and the shadows, memories twisted and torn. She closed her eyes, allowing the anguish to swell within her. "This ends now." In an act of desperation, she pressed the glass shard into her palm, squeezing tight until it broke her skin. It hurt, but that pain was better than the gnawing despair. "I embrace this, my fears, my mistakes," she screamed, her voice breaking through the ominous wails. Suddenly, the fabric of the photograph began to unravel, threads disintegrating like ash in her hands. The shadows jerked back, shrieking in anger as waves of light began to seep through Jenna, radiating like warmth against the harsh night. But amidst the chaos came laughter, the laughter of her friends distorted, echoing through her mind deceptive and dark. Had she unleashed something worse? As the shadows faded, unraveling before her, a figure stepped from the depths. It was one of her friends, face twisted, eyes glowing with rage and hurt. "You thought you could leave us behind, Jenna?" It hissed, the shadows swirling around it like a cloak. With equal parts fear and defiance, Jenna stood her ground, ready to face not just the shadows but the faces of her past. And just like that, the faint glow of salvation dimmed to a flicker. What more awaited her beyond this moment of confrontation? Would the truth bring freedom, or was she destined to live in the terror she had been running from? Jenna stood amidst the darkness, the shadows swirling around her like ravenous wolves. Her heart pounded with fear, but burning within her was a blazing determination. "No more," she breathed, steeling herself against the twisted visage of her friend. The familiar face, a mask of sorrow and betrayal, stared back at her, eyes glowing with the anguish that Jenna had tried so hard to forget. "You abandoned us, Jenna," the voice sneered, a cruel echo of their past, filled with the weight of unhealed wounds. "Now, you will pay." The shadows pulsed, resonating with the pain they conjured. Jenna gripped the shard of glass tighter, its sharpness digging into her palm, a fierce reminder of the power she had to fight. "I won't let you drag me down with you," she declared, her voice breaking through the cacophony of their cries. "I know my mistakes. I know what this darkness feeds on." Every fiber of her being trembled, but she pushed through the fear. The twisted apparition of her friend lunged forward, shadows morphing into claws. Jenna faced it, holding the shard like a sword. "You aren't the past I remember. This isn't who you are." The shadow paused, uncertainty flickering across its features for just a moment. In that heartbeat of hesitation, Jenna seized her chance. "I'm not afraid anymore. I see you for what you are. You are the shadows of my regrets, the fears I've refused to confront. But I will not let you consume me." With those words, she thrust the shard forward, aimed at the heart of the shadow. A wave of light erupted from her, pushing against the darkness with a strength she didn't know she had. The shadows writhed, shrieking in fury as the light seared through them, casting away the echoes of despair that had clung to her for too long. "I embrace my fears," she shouted, her voice unwavering, echoing against the walls of her heart. "You don't get to control me anymore." As the light spread, the contorted face of her friend melted away, revealing the shimmering essence locked within the shadows. Jenna felt an electric connection, a reminder of laughter, warmth, and all the moments they shared. "Remember the sun on our backs?" The laughter and joy we created? You don't have to be prisoners of this darkness with me. Her throat clenched as her memories spilled forth, joy shared and trust broken, woven together in a tapestry of emotions. The shadows faltered, shrieks morphing into whimpers, as the light enveloped them. Jenna felt herself being pulled into a dance with their agony, every bit of regret rising to the surface. She held on to her shard, not to inflict pain but to remind the figures around her of who they were before the shadows took hold. Friends lost to whispers and fear. With a final surge of might, Jenna's heart swelled with mercy. I forgive you. I forgive us. A wave of warmth cascaded from her, enveloping the shadows in a brilliance that momentarily blinded her. The figures transformed, their anguished faces melting away into tears of relief. The laughter returned, not as a haunting echo but as a symphony of hope bursting through the darkness. In a heartbeat, the shadows dissipated, swirling into motes of light that spiraled upwards. Jenna gasped, the air suddenly lighter, filled with a sweet essence of freedom and release. The anguish that once anchored her faded, leaving her feeling almost weightless, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. But there, amongst the dispersing shadows, she felt something familiar pulling back, like the tender grasp of a long-lost friend. You're free now, David's voice echoed softly through her heart, his figure shimmering into view, no longer twisted or malevolent but haloed in golden light. But remember, the shadows will always exist to tempt you. You must continue to choose the light. Tears brimmed in her eyes as the warmth insulated her against the chill of the night. I will, she promised, the words resonating like a vow, for she understood now what it meant to face the darkness. As dawn began to break on the horizon, the lingering feelings of unease slowly faded away. Jenna stood tall. Amidst the fading shadows, a warrior reborn, spirit unshackled from the past. And when she turned to leave the alley, she knew there was nothing more powerful than facing one's fears and emerging from the darkness. A lesson, a reminder, stitched neatly into the fabric of her being. The world outside was bright with possibility, each ray of sun a promise of better days. Jenna stepped forward, ready to embrace life anew, no longer haunted by shadows, but empowered by the knowledge of resilience. Thank you for joining Jenna on this harrowing journey through Willow Creek. If you enjoyed this story, you need to subscribe to the channel now. Don't miss out on the next exclusive tales that'll send shivers down your spine. Smash that like button now to help us feed the algorithm and spread these stories to other fans like you. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Jenna's journey and the secrets of her past. Only true fans understand the impact of this support. Finally, don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. Your support means everything.